Hello and welcome to this level 3 graffiti brick wall tutorial. I wanted to show you how to take what we've learned and make a fully finished scene. All of the tutorial files are available for free on my website. You'll find that link in the description, and this is what we're going to make today. I'll walk you through step by step to the process. Some of those assets you see in the scene I've pre-made for us, and we're just going to drop them into the scene. Let's get to work. Okay, I have a new scene open here. I'm going to hit A to select everything, X, and then Enter to delete. I'm going to hold Shift, hit A, hover over Mesh, and add in a plane. Now I'm going to hit 1. If you have a number pad, that's number pad 1. If you don't have a number pad like me, go to your preferences and do Emulate Numpad, and then just hit number 1. Alright, so I'm going to hit R for rotate, X for the X-axis, and 90. And so I've got this wall facing me here. This is going to be the garage door. I'm going to scroll in, middle mouse, tab, everything selected here already. So I'm going to hit G and Z to move it upwards. And I'm going to hold control and I'm just going to left click and get it to where this garage door is right at the bottom here. I'm going to hit tab to go out of edit mode. So now I'm going to hit N to bring up my right panel, and I want this to be 10 feet. So I'm going to hit 10, FT, hit enter. And yeah, I know it's feet. I'm American. You want to use meters, it's 3.5 or 3.05 m. I'm going to do 10, FT for feet. So now this is 10 feet by 10 feet. I'm going to hold control, hit A, and I'm going to apply the scale. That just makes it so these scale values are 1 and we have it the correct size here. Real quick before I forget, and while we have this, I'm going to hit 3 to go my side view. I'm just going to zoom in. I'm going to hold Shift, hit D, and that's going to duplicate. I'm going to hit Y. I'm just going to pull this back a teeny bit. This is going to be the brick wall behind. So now I'm going to middle mouse around, zoom out a bit. I'm going to hit S for scale, and I'm just going to bring this up to about something like this. There's going to be 3 of these garage doors. So I'm going to left click back on this brick wall. I'm also going to hold control, hit A, and apply that scale while we're at it also. And real quick, I'm in the solid shading view. So if you hit Z, you see we have solid. So I'm going to left click there. If I go up to where you see these little sphere icons, if I left click on that drop down, I can switch to matte cap, and I can click on random. This is something really nice when you're in your solid view. It's just going to assign random colors to every object in your scene, and it's just going to make things easier while you're still just blocking out your scene. Okay, so I'm going to hit 1 again to go my front view. I'm going to left click on this. So this is the garage door, and around it are just kind of like little cement. So I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to hold control, hit R. With your mouse around the middle, you're going to get this vertical line. I'm going to use my scroll wheel up to get 2 of those. Left click, and I'm going to immediately hit S for scale and X to go on the X axis. And that's just going to allow me to get these to be spread evenly across this plane here. So I'm going to left click right here. And then I'm going to hold control, hit R. Hover over the middle this time for this horizontal, left click, and then go up. And I'm going to make it try to be pretty even to these other ones. That looks pretty good. Left click. Now I'm going to left click on this right here. That's going to allow me to have face select mode. So I'm going to left click on this middle face. I'm going to hit P for separate. And I'm going to separate by selection. So I'm going to left click on that selection. Now I'm going to tab out of edit mode. So now if I left click, you'll see this is one object. If I left click on this, this is another object. So with this outer part selected, I'm going to middle mouse around so I can kind of get a side view here. I'm going to tab into edit mode, hit A to select all of those, and hit E for extrude. And I'm just going to pull this out until I think something like this is pretty good. I'm going to tab out of edit mode. Let's take a look at what we got. Okay. Over on this right panel, I'm going to click on the wrench with the modifiers. I'm going to click on add modifier, and we are going to, what are we doing here? We want a bevel. Click on bevel. And so if I zoom in, you can kind of see it's too much right now. So if I bring this width down, that might be pretty good. But I also want to take the segments up. So right now it's just beveling it with one segment. So if I go up to maybe 3 is pretty good. And I'm going to play with this value a little bit. Just find something you like. You just don't want to have that perfectly sharp 90-degree angle edge, because that just really looks fake. I might even take it up to 4 segments. And let's see, am I happy with the width of this? Yeah, it can be, it doesn't need to be too drastic. It can be pretty subtle. Something like that's pretty nice, but I'm probably going to take it up a little bit and go for there. I'm also going to hit F3 and start typing in shade, if I can spell it. Shade, and click on this shade smooth. So if I zoom in, you can see this is smooth here. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. All right, I'm going to work on the material for this middle section. So I'm going to left click on the middle section, and I'm going to go to my shading tab. And I'm going to rotate around. Actually, I'm going to hit 1 to go to my front view and just zoom in here. And I'm going to click on this new right here that will add a new material for us. And if you hold shift, hit A, click on the search, I'm going to type in image, hit enter. I'm going to bring it over, left click, open. And then just navigate to wherever you have the tutorial files. So then we're going to go into textures. This is going to be the pipe 02. So I'm going to double click on this. Actually, we don't need the color. Now that I'm thinking about it, we actually just need the normal. And so I'm going to left click, hit G, bring this down here. G. I'm going to left click and drag and put the normal to the normal. I'm going to hold shift, hit A, left click, and I'm going to type in normal and then get this normal map, hit enter on normal map. And with my mouse hovering here, left click, so they're connected. One thing I want to do is change this color space from sRGB to non-color. So if I zoom in, you can see this is affecting our garage door here. It's just not the right size. I'm also going to click here and change this color. We'll be able to see what we're doing a lot better with this darker color here. And then let's left click on this pipe. And if you follow along, we have Node Wrangler enabled, so I can just hold Control, hit T. If you don't have Node Wrangler, just go to Edit, Preferences, go onto the add-ons and type on Node Wrangler and just check that on. So I'm going to left click and drag down on the scale. Sometimes if you get it just right in the middle, you'll get all 3 of them. And let's see, I'm going to type in 2. Okay, so this is going in the right direction with 2. Click down and drag, maybe go up to 4. Let me see. I think that should be pretty good. Maybe I'll try 5. Yeah, I'll go with 5. Whatever value you think looks good, you can go with it there. And I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and save. Okay, and we also want to have the roughness too. So I'm going to left click on this, Shift D, and we're just duplicating this. Bring it up, G to move it, and you can shift middle mouse just like anywhere else to move around here. And I'm going to click on the little folder. This time we actually need the RGH for the roughness. Double click on that and connect the color to the roughness. It changed itself back to sRGB. I've noticed that happens sometimes. Just pay attention. That may happen to you. So I'm going to left click on that and go to non-color. And if I zoom in and rotate around, you can see, especially in these sections, how the reflections being affected by this roughness. We do need to take this vector from this mapping to here. And if you follow in the series, you should understand why, but we need it to actually match up the same. So we're going to use this 5 scale for both these so they match up. And you can see now these reflective areas have varying roughness on them. Okay, so that's it for the garage door for now. Okay, now I want to go ahead and do the brick wall. So by now you've probably done this a few times, you've been following along, but I'm going to left click on the brick wall, hit 1 just to my front view, and I'm going to zoom out a bit. Actually, you know what? I'm going to zoom back in. Click on the new to get a new material going. Hold Shift, hit A, type in the search, type in image, and going to click open. Let's see, go to this doesn't look like the right folder for me. So again, go back to wherever you have the tutorial files, go into textures. This one is going to be brick. We want there's no color listed here right now. Let's start with the normal then. I'm gonna double click on the normal. When you see those files, there will be a color in there. Hit G to move this around. I am going to connect the color to the normal here. Hold Shift, hit A. Click on that and type in normal, get the normal map and add that there. Okay, so right now you can also see the scale is just way too big, but while we're at it, let's change the color space to non-color. Okay, and left click on this node, hold Control, hit T. This will allow us to left click and drag down the scale, and let's try 10. And I'm gonna zoom in and rotate around. And you know what? I think that actually looks pretty good. The scale could be different for you if you scaled this to a different size than I did. But for me, that's pretty good. If yours is off, you just want it to make sense in relation to how big this garage door is. And for the moment, let me just change this base color just so we can see it a little better. But yeah, I'm happy with that scale, so that looks pretty good to me. I just realized we do have the correct color file here. So I'm gonna hold Shift, hit A, click on search, image, texture, left click, open this folder, go to the correct folder where you've got these resource files and textures to brick. It's DIFF here for the diffuse. Double click on that, left click and drag the color to the base color. And so there it is, but it's just not the right scale. So we're going to take this vector and put it into there. And now we have the correct placement of that. Let's go ahead and add roughness also. So I'm going to shift and middle mouse and move around. I'll left click, hit G, move this out of the way, Shift D, give myself a new image texture here. I'm going to left click on it. And this time I'm going for the roughness. And I also want to make sure I change this sRGB to non-color. The only one that should be sRGB should be the one going into the base color. So I have my roughness here. I'm going to connect the color into the roughness here. And I'm going to zoom in, but we also need to take the vector and put it to the vector here. We're probably not going to see a big difference in this look dev mode, but when we start getting lights on it, we should see this roughness affecting how the reflections work here. But we're not seeing anything really in this look dev view. Also, I want to note while we're here, this normal map strength, you could left click on it, hit go up 2. That's just going to change how much it's faking this geometry. So I also could go down to 0.5. And you can see what you like. And again, this will be different when we have lights in the scene. I am going to go back to 1, but we might change it up a little higher later. But that should be it for now for the bricks. Okay, let's work on this here, this little cement-ish piece. I'm going to hit 1 to go my front view. Shift middle mouse to move around. Actually, let me turn my screen keys back on. There we go. All right, so let's add a new material for these. And I've already done this, so I'm actually just gonna paste in these 3 nodes. But let's go ahead and do this together so I'm not just leaving you hanging. I just wanna be able to reference those. So I'm gonna hold Shift, hit A, click on the search and type in noise texture. And I'm gonna left click and drop that here. So just so you can see what we're doing, I'm gonna take the color and just put it straight into the surface here. This way you can see the final result of what this noise texture is doing just right in the viewport. So I can see I've used these values from what I pasted in. So I'm gonna go to 25, 20, and what is this, -0.1, and hit enter. So you can see it's just giving us, I didn't want this to be a straight, a single color. So I want to add some variations to the scene. So this is why we're doing this here. But as you can see, it's got all these colors, and that's not really great. So I'm gonna hold Shift, hit A, and search and type in hue. And if you hover over here, it'll connect those up. So let's see, it looks like I just brought the saturation down to 0, and everything else is the same, but you can see that's now black and white. I'm gonna left click and drag, get both of those, hit G, move them over, hold Shift, hit A, click on the search and type in color ramp, and again hover over here so it connects these up. And we're just using this, so I don't know if you're not familiar with color ramp, you can change the lightness values in your scene. So what we're doing is we're really crunching in these colors so they make a big difference. I'm actually going to hit G and just bring these close so I can kind of more closely resemble what I had before. So yeah, you can see we have these white and black values now, but we don't actually want this, plugged straight in. So we're going to go back and plug in our principled shader back into the surface. And this is actually going to be for the roughness. So I'm going to take the color and put it into the roughness. And let's see, I know we're still in this look dev mode. So we're not really getting to see how different it is. Maybe if I really crunch it down, crunch them together, you can see here how parts of this will reflect on parts of it not. And what will help if we take this base color and let's just drag it down to be a bit darker. So maybe to about something like this. And again, all this can get tinkered with more as we, work on our scene. Actually getting real lights into the scene is going to make a big difference. So if you zoom back in, now what we had, these white and black areas are affecting what's shiny and what's not. So if I go back, you can see I'm affecting the shininess here. And if I want more to be reflective, I can do it like so. So that will be good for now. I'm gonna hit 1 to go my front view. Again, I just did this to add some variations to the scene. Let's see what it looks like if I take the color and put it into the base color here. Oh yeah, that's really not good. So scratch that idea. We could go back and tinker with this more, but I think it will be fine with just a simple base color. And we can play with this more later, but I'm gonna go for something about like fairly light, something about like this. Let's start going ahead and adding more objects to our scene. So I'm gonna go back to layout and I'm gonna hit 1 to go my front view. If you hit A quickly twice, you'll deselect everything, or you can hold Alt and hit A. Make sure I get these screen keys back on. Okay, so let's see. I want to bring in the lamps because there's gonna be a couple of wall fixture lamps here. So I'm just zooming in and shift middle mouse. So it's File, Append, and again, navigate to wherever you have these project files. And then under the Models folder, there's Light Fixture. Click on that blend, go to Collection, and double click on that light fixture. So it'll bring it into the scene. It's bringing it right in the center. There's an empty right here. So I'm going to left click until I get that empty. You can see now I have just that selected. Zoom back out. I'm just going to G and bring it to here. I'm going to zoom in and make sure I'm putting this in the right place. Something like that looks pretty good. 3 to go in my side view. I'm going to hit G and Y. I'm just going to bring this out until it's just barely touching the wall. If I rotate around, G and Y just to see if that looks okay. Go back to hit 3 to go my side view again. And yeah, that looks like it's in the correct position. Hit 1 to go in my front view. I'm going to hold Shift, hit D. Actually, you know what? I'm going to hit escape on that. And I'm going to hit G. Looks I accidentally did duplicate this. It's still here. So I'm going to hit X and enter for delete. I'm going to hit 3 to go into the side view. I'm just going to left click and drag and get all of these elements. So now that they're all selected, hit 1 to go to my front view, hold Shift, hit D, duplicate, hit X to keep it on the X, and let's get it in the correct position here. It looks like I screwed this up though. Let me hit X and enter for delete. Let's try this one more time. 3 to go my front view, zoom in, left click and drag, making sure you're just getting that base part of it right there. 1 to go to my front view, zoom out, shift D, X, bring it until it's centered over here. Think that looks pretty good. I'm going to hold Alt, hit A, and yeah, we've got these lights in a good position here. Even though we're not going to work with them right in this moment, I'm going to go ahead and hit 1. I'm going to hold Shift, hit A, and I'm going to go to Light and click on Point. Hit G to move it up. Zoom in here. Oh, and I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hit G. I'm just going to get it right into the middle of this light bulb. Left click, hit 3, hit G. Just make sure it's right in the center of this light bulb here. Hit 1 to go my front view, Shift D, X, and bring it over here. Eventually, we are going to change the values. If I left click here, you can see the power and the color. We're probably going to change those, but I just wanted to get those set now because I'm going to duplicate all of this. So I'm going to hit 3 to go my side view. I'm going to left click and drag and get everything. So I'm going to pull to here to get everything except for this wall that you can't quite see. So I don't want to have that brick wall. Hit 1 to go my front view. I'm going to hold Shift, hit D, X. Oh, actually, let's escape on that. Hit X and enter for delete. So let's do it this way. I'm going to left click and drag and get everything. I'm going to hold Shift and left click once and then twice until there's no color around here. Hold Shift, hit D, X, and bring this over. I want to have a little space between them. That looks pretty good. I messed up the first time by not having the garage door, so that's why I redid that step. I'm going to hold Shift, hit D, hit X, bring, oops, I lost it a little bit. There we go. I'm going to bring it back into position, try to make it equal distance. That looks pretty good to me. Hold Alt, hit A. I'm just going to move around. Yeah, that's looking pretty good to me. Okay, let's switch into Look Dev so we can see a little bit more. So I'm going to hit Z and go to Look Dev, and we can get a little bit better sense of how this is looking. So yeah, so our basic structure of our scene is created. These side doors are going to be red. So I'm going to left click on that one, go into shading, and let's see, I'm going to open up the material over here. I'm going to click on this little duplicate, and let's actually just name this. So this is going to be red. Actually, I'm going to do garage red. Hit enter. I'll shift middle mouse to get to where I can see this a little bit better. And change this base color. Let's bring the brightness back up. Let's go to a bright red and then bring the brightness back down. Maybe I'll make it not completely saturated, but something along these lines. You can always tinker with this later, but I think that looks pretty good like that. So I'm going to shift middle mouse, come over here, left click on this one, left click here, and change that to garage red. And I'm going to left click on this one. I'm actually going to name this garage black just to try to have some good habits naming these. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save. Okay, let's work on the sidewalk. So I'm going to go back to the layout view. I'm going to hold Alt, hit A just to deselect. Hold Shift, hit A, hover over mesh, and add in a cube. I'm going to hit 1 to go to my front pad, or front view. Tab in the edit mode, G and Z, hold Control, and the left click until the base is at the bottom. I'm going to tab back out of edit mode. And let's see, so this cube, first off I'm going to go 7. Let's do G and Y to move it on the Y axis. I'm going to pull it out to about here. Right now I'm just looking at this, how wide it's going to be. And that's kind of close to what we want in the end, to be honest. But maybe I'm going to do S and Y, bring it out a bit. I want it to intersect and go underneath here a little bit. That's pretty good. I'm going to hit 1 again. This I'm going to do S and Z. And this is just going to control how tall it is. I'm just going to zoom in, middle mouse, zooming in, shift middle mouse to pan around. S and Z. And I'm going to bring this down. It doesn't need to be too tall. Maybe something about here. I'm going to tab into edit mode, zoom in a little bit, hold control, hit R, hover my mouse over the left side here. You can kind of see there's a line through the center. I'm going to left click. I'm going to bring it down to about there. So if I zoom in closely, maybe I should zoom in a little more. Something like this is going to be good. I'm going to hit Z and then wireframe. And I'm going to make sure I'm in vertex select. So I'm going to left click there. Left click and drag to get these vertices. And I'm going to hit E to extrude. And this is just going to be the little gutter in between each of these tiles. Looking at this view, I think we're way too tall still. So I'm going to zoom out and zoom out some more. I'm going to left click and drag. I'm going to get everything except for that bottom row of vertices there. Yeah, and I'm going to do a G and Z. Go lower with this, much lower, maybe about there. Zoom back out. I'm going to left click and drag and get the top row. I'm going to hit Z and go to solid. Just again to kind of see where we're at here. And actually, you know what? I was going to bring this down smaller, but I think that's pretty good. With all of these selected, though, let's hold control, hit B, and we're going to do a little bevel. And if you scroll your mouse up, you'll get a couple more cuts. And I'm going to left click there. Let's zoom into this corner and see what we did. So that didn't quite actually bevel the way I intended, but let's left click on face select, left click on this part here, hit G and Z. I'm just going to move it up a bit. This isn't exactly how a sidewalk would work, but for our purposes, that's probably going to be good enough. Let me zoom in again, and I'm going to go ahead and do F3, type in shade, and get shade smooth going on. Let's see. Okay, and let's go to the modifiers tab, click on add modifier, and click on array. I'm going to zoom out. It's going the opposite direction I want, so I'm going to change this offset to -1. And so now it's just repeating this object this direction for us. Oops, -1. I meant to be changing the count here. Just increase the count till you have enough. G and X. I'm going to move it over, and that's going to be enough to fill our scene. And again, we may tinker with this a bit more later, but that's good for the basic shape of our sidewalk here. Go ahead and save. All right, so let's work on the material now. So I'm going to go over to the shading tab, and I'm going to zoom out and move around here. Click on new material. I'm going to hold shift, hit A, click on search, get an image texture. Let's go ahead and open this one. Find where you have tutorial files, textures. This is going to be large floor tiles, and we want the DIFF. So I'm going to left click and take that and put it to the base color. And here you can see it's not matching up correctly for us yet, but I just wanted to get this connected. So let's keep going though. So I'm going to hold shift, hit D, bring this down, open up, and click on the folder. I'm going to double click on this roughness, click and drag that to the roughness over here. We do want to change this to non-color data. With this left click, I'm going to shift D, move this down, click on the folder. This time we want the normal. I'm going to connect the color here to the normal there. Hold shift, hit A, search for a normal map, and put that here. And so you should be pretty familiar with doing that now. I'm actually even going to take this roughness to 2, I believe. And I also want to change this one to non-color data. So yeah, right now it's not really making any sense because it's not matching the UV. So let's go to UV editing, And I'm going to hit A and just make sure all of this object's selected in edit mode. And I'm going to zoom out my left panel. Right now it's showing us it on a normal map. I can click this little drop down and show it on the diffuse layer. And then with my mouse back on the right panel, I'm going to hit U, and I'm going to go down to cube projection. And so basically that will just take, since this is kind of cube-like, it's going to unwrap it, basing it off of a cube. You could spend more time and really make the grooves match up here, but I want this to be a little quicker for us. So with my mouse on the left side, I'm going to hit A, I'm going to hit S for scale, and I'm just going to bring this down, G, left click, until these all are just sitting right here. So now let's go see how this looks. In the right panel, I'm going to tab out of edit mode, hit Z and click on look dev. And let's just go zoom in and see how this looks. So yeah, I don't mind how this looks. So you can see where we didn't actually UV unwrap it and we're not like paying the closest attention. This gap, which is kind of hard to see here, I found it. We're not really getting the right texture here, but it's going to be kind of far away from the camera, and I really don't think it's going to be that visible, so we're just going to leave it like that, and I think that's looking pretty good for now. I'm also going to jump back to shading. I think I want to play with the colors a bit. I'm hold shift, middle mouse, come up here, hold shift, hit A, type in search, and type in color until you get a color ramp. I'll left click here. And I think I just want to make this, let's see. I want to make it kind of darker. And really, again, this starts to be, your own artistic process. We still don't have real lights in the scene. Like if I hit Z, we're in look dev mode still. So this all might change a bit once you start adding your real lights. But I just want to just kind of make that darker there. I'm going to test out what it looks like getting this lightness value up. I think something like that looks more interesting. I'm going to hit M. You can see the before and the after. It's just playing with that color a bit. Part of me is also thinking I might want to make this the space between each of these tiles further. I just feel like they're really close together. So I would tab into edit mode. I'm shift middle mousing. Let me actually hit 1. It'll be easier this way. Zoom in even closer. I'm going to hit Z and left click on wireframe. I'm going to left click and drag just to get these. And actually, we're still in face select mode. I'm going to left click on vertex mode, left click and drag, and just make sure I have the correct vertices here. And if I hit G and X, you can see I'm changing this gap distance. I'm going to hit escape. So really this probably is pretty close to right, but I just want to push it maybe a little bit further. I'm going to hit G and X, and it may be subtle, and we end up maybe change it back, but tab, Z, and go to look dev. I don't know, maybe I pushed it a little bit too far, but that's something to think about as we keep working on this project. I also was kind of paying attention to where those seams match up on this garage door. So if I hit G and X, I kind of liked it where the seams kind of, let me actually hit 1 to go directly in my front view and 5 to add perspective. I kind of like these lines almost as leading lines, and I'm even going to hit S and X, and I'm going to scale these to be even wider. Maybe something about there, and I'm going to hit G and X. Something like that. And again, we may keep playing with this more as we go, but I think something like that's looking pretty good. It kind of leads the eyes and frames it here, so it's looking pretty good. So let's go back to the layout view. I'm gonna hit Z, go to look dev, and I'm just taking a little, a look around the scene. I went to my top view, scrolling around, getting a sense of if I think this is looking good so far or not. I think I may end up extending this sidewalk even further, even though this is kind of realistic. I like the framing in my final shot where you can only see the sidewalk, but for now, let's hit 1 to go in our front view. I'm going to hold Alt-A just to deselect everything. I'm going to hold Shift and hit A. And let's go ahead and add in a camera. And it actually put it right at the center. There's a short key to do it where we're looking, but I forgot to do that. So I'm just going to hit G, Y, pull this back, hit 0 to go look into our camera view, and then N to bring up my right panel. And now we can just drag this Z value. Okay, so we have to get to a point where we like our composition and our framing. So first off, I chose to do this as a square image. So I'm going to go to, it kind of looks like a little printer, and change this 1080 to 1920. So it's going to be 1920 by 1920. And I want to pull, I want to take that back to 0. I want to pull the Y back a bit. I liked where I could see a bit of both garage doors. Maybe something like this is pretty good. And as you can see, if the camera's got a gap in between what it sees and the ground here. So I'm going to left click on the sidewalk, hit G and Y. I'm going to pull this over. Yep, I think we're going to have to hit S and Y and just make it a little bit bigger. That'll be enough to really fill between these two places here. So at this point, let's just start adding more of the other elements into the scene. Okay, so I'm going to hold Alt, hit A just to deselect everything. I'm going to click on File, Append, navigate again to wherever you have these files. I keep getting to the wrong place. Let me see here, where am I? All right, and then find the Models folder. And let's go ahead and add in this red eye box and double click on the blend file and then go to collection and then double click on red eye box. And so we have it imported here. It might take a second to load. I'm going to left click just on that little empty, have that highlighted. I'm going to hit S for scale, bring that down to, let's see, maybe about here. Hit R for rotate, Z to do it on the Z axis, and 180, and hit enter. And so now we have it in our scene. I'm going to hit 7 to go to my top view, hit G. Actually, for a second, I'm going to put it just right here. I like to have my camera, I'm going to select the camera and hit S to scale. I like to see exactly what I know my camera's seeing. This can be really helpful to position things in the scene. So now that I have that, I'm going to left click back on this empty for the red eye box, hit G, and I know I want this just going off the edge of the camera, something like that. So I'm going to hit 0 to go into this view, and that's pretty good. I might do G and X to move it back over a little bit. Again, we can play with this more as we go. And you know what? I want to make it smaller. So I'm going to hit S for scale. And I'm going to bring that scale down maybe about to here. I'm going to do G, X, and bring it over to that edge a little more. That's pretty good. I do want a little bit of the sidewalk peeking through. So I'm going to do G, Y until I got a little bit of the sidewalk peeking through. And also, if you're thinking the scene kind of looks bland and stale still, it's because we're in look depth mode and we don't have any of our real lights, and we also haven't enabled some of the additional EV settings. So the scene will start punching up and looking more vibrant in a little bit here. But first, I just want to gather everything in the scene that we need. So let's just keep adding the additional objects. All right, so let's go to File, Append again. This time I am closer to the right spot, so I'm just going to up a few folders. Going to go to Small Tree in Pot, double click on that blend file, go to Collection, double click on Tree in Pot, and again it's pretty large. There is an empty for this, but also right now I'm just going to hit S for scale and bring this down. I know I want this to be about the same height as that red eye box, actually, something along these lines. I'm going to hit 7 to go to my top view. G, I'm going to pull this out to here. It is intersecting with this back wall a little bit. Let me hit 0 and just see. Oh, my computer froze for a second. 0. We can get, yeah, I kind of liked it much closer. I'm going to hit 7, zoom in, G. I'm going to put it a little bit more to being in between these two garage doors. I'm going to hit 0. That's too far though. So I'm going to hit G and X, put it to about here, G and Y, and I'm going to put it closer. I don't want it to overlap too much, but maybe something like that. I'm going to hit G and X, move it back over a little bit, hold Alt, hit A, deselect. That looks pretty good. And again, we can still tinker with the positioning further. We just want to start getting the main feel of this going. One thing I noticed is I actually want to lower camera angle even. So I'm going to left click on the edge of this where we can get the camera. I'm going to take Z and I'm going to bring it down even further. I kind of want this box to be pretty centered in our scene. So that looks pretty good. And I may even pull this back in a bit. But maybe I'll do this with the focal length. So I'm going to click on this camera. And yeah, I'm still kind of debating if I want that at 50 or not. I do kind of like how this looks. Let's leave it for now. I'm going to left click on the sidewalk and G, Y. I'm going to get this kind of centered between where it's a gap between these two. S and Y, make it a little larger still. GY, make sure it's, oh, we're not quite there. I'm going to do S and Y, make it a little bigger. So I'm just making sure that, you know, it goes past the garage door here and it's not, the camera isn't seeing any gap. So that looks pretty good to me. Now we're going to need to left click on this box, G and Y, and get it to where there's a little gap here at G and X and move it over to about so. It might be a little big again now that we can't change this perspective. So I'm gonna hit S for scale, bring it down a bit, maybe something about there. Okay, so file, append, go up a few. I want the paper 01, double click on the blend, go to collection, double click on litter paper, and I'm gonna hit 7, I'm gonna hit G, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put that somewhere like so, 0 to go to my camera view. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna do, actually I think that's pretty good. I just wanna move this box over a little more. Maybe S for scale, just bring it down just a little bigger than I want it to be. And then I think that actually that's pretty good. My left click on this, GX, put that about there. Let's see. I don't like how that edge is butting too close up to this edge. So I'm gonna left click on the sidewalk, GX. I'm just gonna shift it over a teeny bit to about there. I like where it's meeting right there and where it's meeting there. That looks pretty good to me. There's one more little scrap on the ground. Let's go ahead and add that now. File, append, go up a few. I want the litter 01, litter, collection, double click on that. Hit 7 to go to my top view, hit G, and that's just gonna be laid somewhere around here. Hit 0. And it's subtle, but it starts to make a difference in the scene. I'm gonna hit Alt A, and there. So we have all of our objects in the scene. So now let's start playing with some real world lighting. All right, so I'm gonna hit Z and go to rendered. So you can see the scene's really dark right now because all we have going on are these little lights and a gray world light going on. So in the right panel over here, where it says color, I'm going to click on this little circle and then click on the environment texture and open. I'm going to navigate where I have our files and click on HDR, and we'll double click on this autumn forest. All right, you can see this has brightened up our scene significantly. We may tinker with this strength in a bit, but let's also go ahead and go to these, what looks like the camera here. Let's left click on ambient inclusion. You can see it's already making a big difference in the scene. I'm gonna leave bloom off for now, but that
does a little kind of brightness effect around bright areas. It kind of has this glow to it. Let's do screen space reflections. Let's left click on that, open that, and uncheck the half res trace. I don't think our scene has refraction, but I'm just going to check that just in case. Shadows, I'm going to click on soft shadows. So that's going to be, just help the realism of the scene a bit. But let's keep going and add more lights, or let's add a light. So I'm going to hold shift, hit A, and I'm going to add in a light, and it's going to be an area light. I'm going to middle mouse around, zoom out, G and Z. I'm just going to bring this way up high, G and Z even higher. I'm going to hit S to scale, really scale it out. I'm going to hit 7 in my top view, G, bring this over here, hit 1, zoom out. I'm actually going to make this go way up here, hit R for rotate, 7. I'm going to move it a little bit, hit G, R to rotate it here. Oops, freezing again, sorry. Left click, rotate around, and let's hit 0 to get into our camera. And let's click on the little light bulb. And then, so this power, let's really crank this up. Let's go to 10,000, 10, 1, 2, 3, 10,000. And you can see it's affecting the lighting here. I also want to open up this shadow tab and left click on contact shadows. That's just going to add a little bit of shadows around areas where it's kind of touching that ground. If I change this distance, you can see this value changing a bit. But let's play with this power amount. Let's go down to 5,000. I'm just going to tinker with this until I have a better sense of how it's affecting the scene. I think I may even, let's try out going to the world tab, putting this down to 0.5, and then going back to our lamp and making this 5,000, maybe even 10,000. I may have done something like that in our scene. And for the color, I'm going to click on the color, and I'm just going to make it a teeny bit. You can especially see here in the brick how this color is affecting it. I actually don't like how it looked with that yellowish color. So I'm going to play with giving it a little bit of a warmer hue, play with a little cooler hue, see what looks better. I think something, and it's really subtle, like if you go way too far over here, you're really going to alter the color. So it's just something subtle, something about there looks pretty good to me. I feel like I might actually even take that back a bit and go even closer to white. And what would happen if we crank this up to 20,000? I'm just change that 1 to a 2, hit enter. And so this is, it's looking like more of a bright sunny day at this point. We can also change the position of this a bit. So if I hit G and Y and move it, you'll see where the shadow's hitting. I kind of like here where I'm getting this slanted shadow coming off of both there and there. I'm also going to check on and off this contact shadow, and I'll play with this distance value. So, if it's really strong, you're getting some results like that, but I'm going to pull it back. I don't want it that drastic, but I do like what I'm getting. And I am going to change this 2 back to a 1 to go to 10,000. I think that's going to look a little bit better for us. Okay, I want to do a quick check on all these objects and just see if they're intersecting with this, where they are sitting exactly. So I'm going to hit 1 on the, or I'm going to left click on that empty for this box, hit 1 to go in the front view. I'm going to zoom in a lot, shift middle mouse, zoom in, and I'm going to hit G and Z. And yeah, I'm going to make sure, I'm going to zoom in even really close here, G and Z, and make sure it's just barely touching there. I'm going to left click on this guy. Let me hit G and Z, bring it up, maybe about there, rotate around.
Yeah, I think that's in good position there. While I'm here, I'm going to left click on the empty, hit 1, shift middle mouse to go over here. Zoom in, G and Z. Again, just barely touching. Left click on this wrapper, shift middle mouse, G, Z. And it's kind of hard to tell for this one. I'm going to put it maybe about there. I'm going to hit 0 to go back to my camera view, Alt A. And yeah, I think that's a little bit better. It's just helping, having those sitting better. We're getting better shadows underneath each of those objects. Let's see, while we're at it, let's click on this camera. If I close up the shadows, if I open up this color management, you can actually do some little changes here. So I'm going to change the look to, let's try medium high contrast. Let's left click that. Let's even try very high contrast. So the very high is a bit too much for me. So let's go to high. So you may like that high contrast there. Again, you can also change this in post, but I'm going to go to medium high contrast. I think that's looking pretty good. I feel like this shadow's a little weird here. I might click on this little empty I can see here, do G and Z, and move it down maybe just the teeniest little hair. I don't know if I really changed anything, but it looked a little off to me. Hold Alt, hit A, and that's good there. Let's see. So I also want to change these lamps. I'm going to left click on the little circle there to get this lamp. I'm going to click here. So these I do want to be warmer. I'm also going to change the power. Let's just see what happens when I do 50. Oops, 50. So you definitely see it at 50. Let's go ahead and change the color to more of a orangey, yellowish. So if you go really drastic with it, you're really seeing this color. I don't want it to be that drastic, but I do want it to have kind of this bright glow to it. I think I can also, if you hover your mouse over this color, I think you can hold Control, hit C, and then if I left click on this one, I can hover over and do Control V. Yep, that works. Put this up to 50, and I think maybe with the two of them right next to each other, 50 is going to be too strong. So let's maybe go back to 25. I'm going to left click on this one and go to 25. See how that's looking. Left click on this one, hover over here, Control V to get that color in there. Make it 25. Left click on this one, Control V with the mouse over that color. Get that. Change this to 25. So it's looking pretty good. I now want to see what this looks like without everything hovering over. You could do a test render, but what's kind of nice and easy is you can just click this button to show and hide these overlays. So, this is just a good time to, look over the scene. So I'm thinking I think I made these lights a little too bright and a little too yellow. So I'm going to put the overlays back on. Let's change this to 15. And let's click here. And let's just bring that back a bit to here. I'm going to hover my mouse over, Control C. Left click on this one, Control V, make it 15. And really, again, this is your own artistic decision-making process while building a scene. All right, so now I've made those all have this color and the 15. Let's go ahead and turn these overlays off. Yeah, maybe even something in between would look a little bit better, but I'm gonna leave it at that for now. And I think the overall scene's looking pretty good. We just need to add in our smiley face, the chalk on the sidewalk, and this graffiti up here just to help sell the final image. I'm going to turn these overlays back on and save. Okay, so let's add the smiley face. I'm going to left click on this garage door, click on shading, hit 0 to go to my camera view. Now I'm going to shift middle mouse, get myself some more space here. I'm going to hold shift, hit A, type in image texture, left click, open, navigate to wherever you have the tutorial files. I'm going to click on textures and I want this smiley PSD. So I want to drag this color into the base color into the base color.
I'm going to hold shift, hit A, click on search. I'm going to type in mix and get this mix RGB. Put it here. And actually we want this color to be the bottom color. And we're going to take the alpha and put it in the factor. So now we're mixing our smiley image with this color here. So wherever is transparent, it's going to get this color. So I'm going to bring that back down. I had it to a pretty dark color, maybe something like that. And I'm noticing that it's kind of weird and stretched. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, hit A, then U, and click on unwrap. And there we go. We're getting a better without being stretched. I'm going to tab back out of edit mode. So that's pretty good. But let's left click on this node, hit hold control, hit T. And I'm going to left click and drag here. And maybe just take this down to 0.8. Oh, actually, that's the opposite. I'm going to go select all those, do 1.2. And actually, even still, that's too much. It's just going to be really subtle, like 1.05 maybe. And then it just needs to be nudged a teeny bit. So I think it's going to be like, let's try 0.25. Not even that's way too much, 0.01. Yeah, it's just a teeny little nudge. It was a little opposition. I think this garage door maybe is slightly off or something. Let's see, what about the Y? If I do just one little tap, so that's the wrong. So it needs to be negative. Let's do negative 0.01. Negative 0.02. Yeah, it's pretty subtle. Let's go negative 0.05. All right, sorry, I keep changing my mind. Negative 0.03. Okay, that looks good to me. It's centered. It is being covered up a bit. You know what I do? I do want to change this a teeny bit more. Let's do 1.07. Even that. Okay, so let's go 1.1. And that is better. I just want there to be some empty space around the edges. You can see we're starting to see the other smiley face show up. Let's just go ahead and change single image. Oops, actually unclick there. Change repeat to clip. And we're going to have to keep nudging this a little bit more until it's in place. Keep doing it the wrong direction. So let's do negative 0.04. That's not it. Negative 0.03. Negative 0.01. Okay, that's pretty good for that direction. Negative 0.05. See, that's pretty good. You can keep playing with that until, I'm going to zoom out, until you're happy with the positioning and the scale of that smiley face. But I do think that's looking pretty good there. I'm going to go ahead and save. Okay, so let's continue on and left click on this brick. And we're going to add in that graffiti that goes up there. And I also want to hit Z and go to rendered. I don't want to see this look dev anymore. I'm starting to really want to see how our final image is going to look with lighting. And I'm also going to, is my wall selected? Yeah, okay, so I do have it selected. With my mouse back down here, I'm going to left click G, move this over to give us some more space. Hold shift, hit A, type in image texture. Put this, make sure you're not highlight over there so you don't accidentally connect those. G, and I'm going to open up again. Let's navigate to where we have these files. Under textures, this is going to be, which is a square. I actually don't know which of these it is. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Square art.psd, where it's all grunged up. Double click on that. And now I'm going to hold shift, hit A, type in search, and get this mix RGB. I'm going to connect that there. I'm going to connect the color here. I'm actually going to click that to be the first one and make the alpha connect with the factor there. I'm going to hit G. I'm going to left click on this mix, hit G, just to make it a little bit clearer what's being clicked on. And as you can see right now, it's actually kind of cool what it did. You're getting this graffiti all throughout, which you may actually like something along those lines. It wasn't what I was going for though, so I'm going to continue. I'm going to left click here, hit G, move it up, and I'm going to control T, and I'm just going to left click and drag on this scale. Let's go up to like 10. And you know what, we're also getting the repeat, so I'm going to turn this repeat. Again, like you might like this, but I'm going to go to clip just so we can really isolate it. to a specific area, which now I'm wondering why do I have these colors switched to be the wrong order? Oops. Let's see. Maybe let's try switching these colors real quick. And let me zoom. Okay, so that's actually, I had these colors in the wrong order. So you can see in my case, the artwork is way over there. So I'm going to shift middle mouse. And now we just need to start nudging this into the correct position. Click and drag this over the Y. And I want it to be something like this. I'm going to zoom back in. Maybe give myself some more room to see what I'm doing. So it needs to be a little bit bigger. Let's see. I'm going to click and drag. Go down to 7. The one problem of doing it like this is whenever you change the scale, you are changing this position pretty drastically. So there are other methods, but I'm going to keep going with it this way for the remainder of this tutorial. I'm going to zoom in. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I might make it go over a little bit more so you can see more of it. Maybe something like that. Maybe a teeny bit closer. I want it kind of maybe in between those two. What about like negative 1.05? Negative 1.02? Oh, that's the wrong direction. So negative 1.08. Yeah, something like that I think is pretty good. Let's now add the chalk to the ground here. So I'm going to left click on the chalk. And I'm not seeing anything here, but you know what? I'm going to zoom out. And I just moved a little bit out of position here. And I'm going to click and drag, give myself some more space. I'm going to shift middle mouse and move that up. And so now I'm going to zoom back in. We're going to be working down here. Hit G, pull this over. Let's see. So I'm going to hold Shift, hit A, type in image. So I searched. I don't want to hover over this line. I'm going to get it up into some empty space. G, move this over. Hit open. Navigate to our tutorial files here. And I want this chalk. I'm going to hit G, give myself some more space. And let's go ahead and hold Shift, hit A, search for a mix RGB. Hover over here. And I'm going to connect the color. Let's start color 2. I think that's right. And take the alpha to the factor. Okay, so it's doing what we want, but the scale is just way off, so we have to fix that. Alright, so I'm going to left click on this node, hold Control, hit T. And so I will say one frustrating way about using this technique is if you do want to, so for example, this needs to get way smaller. So even if I go like to 3, you can still see it here, but if I go up, we want way smaller to 10. We're seeing it right now, but it's because we have to repeat. If I change this repeat to single or clip, we've completely lost where it is. And it can be kind of difficult to mess with this location to find out where these things are, to find them. But I know I've been going in the negative direction to kind of find these. So I just want to know that it's kind of a frustrating part of doing it like this. But that's going to work for our purposes. And again, it is repeating because it's just an array. So every single piece of the sidewalk has the same one, but it's not going to be framed in our camera. If you want to do a different scene, you could go through and apply this. You could have applied this beforehand, and these each would be separate objects that you could, then you could separate them out and do whatever you want with it. But since they're going to be cropped out, I'm just going to leave it as such. Let's go back to layout. I'm going to hit Z and go to rendered. And I'm also going to hold Alt, hit A to deselect everything. I'm going to left click and just see how this is looking. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about it. My original scene maybe had some more interesting lighting here, and maybe these lamps are a little different, but I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I'm going to turn the overlays back on, and one thing I want to play with this actually a little bit more. So I'm going to click on the sidewalk, go back to shading, and let's play with these values a bit more. So So I like how it gets the brightness in there when we crunch it this way. And I do want to give myself some more space, so I'm really seeing what I'm doing more. Maybe zoom in just in this area. But if you crunch too much, you're gonna start messing with the colors a lot. But something like that's pretty good. And let's see about these blacks. I kind of like it darker than maybe it is in real life even. Not that drastic, but something like that might be kind of nice actually. I'm gonna zoom out, and again, really, this is your own artistic decision-making process during this too. Go ahead and save. All right, so let's jump back to shade or to layout. I'm hit Z, go back to rendered, and turn these off real quick. Yeah, so I think this is looking pretty complete. You could go through and do some more tinkering if you'd like. I'm gonna turn these overlays back on. Just gonna kind of look around my scene a little bit. You also, you could always choose a different camera angle. You can put more objects into the scene. I think something like this could be interesting. You could really get cropped in here. It's really up to you. But yeah, I'm gonna hit 0, go back to my camera, and I'm happy with this finished result. All right, that's it. Please like and subscribe if you found this tutorial helpful. It really does help motivate me to keep making videos. If you have any questions, please leave a comment, and I try to get to them all. All right, thanks for watching.